Thank you all for coming. We got a full house. I love it. Thank you for being here. I'm Jonathan Karl with ABC News, and we've got a great group of some good friends. All the way down at the end, we have Mr. Tim Miller.
Hey, everybody.
Pretty good. Of course, writer at large with the Bulwark and author of Why We Did It, a travelogue from the Republican Road to Hell.
Yeah. We're in it, baby. It's hot.
Oh my God.
It's hot in the desert.
Is there an exit?
No.
Lis Smith, veteran Democratic political operative who has worked on campaigns of all sizes, some 20 or so campaigns.
Like, we're coming up to 30.
Oh my God, okay.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing you when you had just signed on to some guy that was the former mayor of South Bend.
Whatever happened to him, yeah.
I don't know. Author of Any Given Tuesday, A Political Love Story. And then Mr. Rick Wilson.
Woo!
Longtime Republican operative. Remember that?
Yeah, it seems like a long time ago.
Long ago. Author of Running Against the Devil, A Plot to Save America from Trump and Democracy and Democrats from Themselves. So we're going to get to Democrats. I think there's actually a lot to talk about Democrats. But before we do that, Tim, can you help me? Because you were spokesperson for the Republican National Committee.
Yeah.
You've worked on some national campaigns. I remember one in 2016. How do we make what is going on now? I mean, just the last few days, we've had Trump call for the U.S. ownership of Gaza.
Why not?
We've had
Beachfront property?
All I know is we're going to be greeted as liberators.
Yes. I mean, going along in the beginning, I was thinking, well, this is all stuff he campaigned on. I mean, he talked about, rooting out the deep state. He talked about retribution and getting rid of all those awful, figures in places like the FBI and DOJ. But I don't remember him talking about, how do we...
Did Greenland? Were we taking Greenland during the campaign?
Yeah.
Time is a flat circle, but I think that happened.
Panama's a new one, too, yeah.
During the campaign?
You remember the campaign motto, gas, groceries, Gaza, and Greenland.
Greenland, yeah, the 4 Gs. Yeah, man. Look, I mean, some of the stuff is stuff that he campaigned on, and some that Republicans like. Like I'm watching the effort to go and tear apart the federal government. That's a plan that could have been on any Republican president's radar. I think that every other Republican president before this one would have, tried to follow the rules at least at some level, done it somewhat legally. I mean, you go back and think about Alberto Gonzalez gets run out of town. For pushing out a few U.S. attorneys for political reasons. Carl might have been involved in that. He's around here somewhere. We could ask him about. He'd probably remember better than me. But Alberto Gonzalez gets run out of town over that. Trump did that times 10 in one day, right? And just unapologetically, like we were just doing this, and it's basically like, what are you going to do about it, nerds? Like that's essentially the legal brief. Like there's not like a general counsel writing something that's like, oh, there was some rationale for this because of something that was tucked into some bill in 1862. Like they're not even doing that. They're just running roughshod. So I understand why like instinctually Republican voters who are not like political obsessives are like, this is good, right? This is good, right? This is what we want. We're getting rid of deep state federal government officials. It's like the devil is going to be in the details on all of this stuff.
Yeah, our clock is not winding down. There we go.
That's okay.
All right. That was free time.
You guys get a free 7 minutes.
That was a bonus.
I just think the devil's be in the details on some of the stuff as it starts to potentially impact people, right? Because like most of these voters aren't impacted by what is happening at the top level on the 7th floor of the FBI, right? Like at least directly. That might be different if we are like, I don't know, I guess going into Gaza and taking the unexploded bombs and sending American troops in there so we can rebuild it.
Or if we're passing tariffs that, the people that really thought the price of eggs would come down go into Walmart and they're going to pay a 15 or 20 or 30 or 50% premium on a lot of things that they're going to buy.
We don't import our eggs, do we?
Actually, we do import a lot of eggs from Canada.
Do we? Yeah. Oh my goodness! But the Canadian tariffs are on hold. I mean, there's been a whiplash to all of this. I mean, we had the a trade war with Colombia that lasted about 3 hours. We had a trade war with Mexico and Canada, which lasted a little bit longer. I mean, but we actually do have tariffs that just went into effect on China and counter. So, I mean, Liz, how do you know what to be up in arms about and what to say, oh, that's not important?
So the honest answer is that we don't necessarily know right now. And like, I'm just gonna be honest, right? Like if I had all the answers, I would spill them out, I would give them all to you right now. Generally, I think it's good to focus on things like Tim mentioned, where there is a direct impact on people's lives, right? If you're not getting a Social Security payment, if you're not, getting your Medicaid services covered, that's something people are gonna care a lot more about. Like I personally really care about USAID funding. I think it's like abominable that the US is gonna abdicate its role as like a moral leader globally, and like kids in Uganda are gonna die because of it. Like why are we cutting that? But I'm not gonna pretend that most voters agree with me on that, And so I still think that Brian Schatz is right to go out there and say what they're doing with USAID is, it's unconstitutional, it's horrible, and if they're doing it with this, they'll do it with other things. But we need to be realistic about the trade-off here, that when we're talking about that, like these guys picked USAID for a reason because they know voters will agree with them. Why are we spending money on kids in Uganda and not kids, right here in Des Moines? And so I do still think we should talk out about these things, and today we saw two different sets of messaging on Gaza. You had some Democrats, like Pat Ryan, he's one of my faves, veteran from upstate New York, saying he's trying to launch a ground war, and he's talking about putting boots on the ground. But then you had other Democrats saying, no, it's a distraction. And like, that's a problem, because that messaging really cancels each other out. But I think right now, I was saying this to you before, this is a period where I'm okay if we don't have one unified message. I think we've got to see what works. And I don't think that we should just give them a pass on everything, but be smart about the messaging. And one message that doesn't work is the democracy message and calling Trump an authoritarian. We saw this in 2024. It does not work. What works is when you talk about the economy. What works is when you talk about concrete things. And it might be a sexier message, maybe for this crowd, maybe on Twitter, but it really doesn't work with voters. And so if we're going to pick these fights, let's figure out more effective messaging when we do it.
We call it X now.
No, we don't.
X.
Yeah.
So let's.
I will be hooked on jumper cables before I call it.
Okay, but
Anything but Twitter.
let's talk about Elon for a second, because I just checked in
Yeah.
on X. Elon Musk over the last 24 hours has posted on X. We used to call it tweeting, but he's 200 plus times over the last 24 hours. This is while he is also leading this effort to burrow into the federal government.
And running 3 companies.
And running, not insignificant companies. I mean, these are large companies.
Man, ketamine is a hell of a drug.
I thought it's a downer.
Or whatever he's on.
Usually a
'cause
downer.
Yeah.
This is a guy who has obviously too much time on his hands right now. But I will.
And his Twitter handle, if you go to his bio page, the Twitter homepage or whatever you call it, or X, he's the government IT guy. Is the way he's portraying himself.
Look, I think.
By the way, this might not be right. If you just went out and, I mean, his popularity has gone down.
No,
but the idea of going in and saying we want to reduce the size of the federal workforce, we want to get rid of wasteful programs. This has been standard Republican fare for a long time that they haven't really followed through on. So,
And some Democrats give us some. We stand up against waste, fraud, and abuse.
I still remember reinventing government.
Sure.
Al Gore, yes.
Look, I think one of the things that we're witnessing here is that almost every American, regardless of party or ideology, thinks the government ought to be smaller and smarter and better and less expensive and more efficient. Everybody can agree on those basic things. But what you're seeing right now is just flat out political arson. They want to destroy, this is the Silicon Valley ethos that Elon and Peter Thiel and all these little young incel minions he's brought into the government to hack every system. I mean, congratulations, everybody in this room. Your Social Security information is with Elon and a bunch of high school guys. Couldn't feel more safe if I tried. But I think that idea that we are watching someone who is stochastic and random and erratic, and who has a bunch of very strange mental predicates about what he finds outrageous.
Yeah.
I mean, there's this idea that Elon Musk, who has taken in billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars of government money, is somehow outraged by Lutheran charities and Lutheran social services getting $40 million over 8 years. So I think there's a lot about Elon's mental state that we don't fully understand. But we're watching the crisis play out, on live social media right now.
Yeah, Rick, the point about him making the money, though, is not an insignificant one, just as far as like how unique this is, and how there's not really a precedent for this. I mean, Elon is one of, if not the biggest recipient of federal dollars.
Yeah.
He was the biggest.
19 billion over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
The biggest donor.
It's real money.
The biggest.
250 million in the last weeks of the campaign.
Yeah, the biggest donor to the president, and he runs a media platform that might not be the biggest, but is a meaningful media platform that has influence. And so and Rick and I, we were talking back, and he's like, it would be like, imagine if George Soros had been working in the Obama White House,
Wasn't he?
And had and took over the Treasury Department and stopped payments to religious groups. That would be it would have been a 5-alarm fire constantly on Fox, and it would have been. But that wouldn't even actually have been the scale, the exact comp to this, because it would have to have been like George Soros, and he also owns Facebook or something, right? Like, and he also is a military contractor to the government. It's like just the depths of what Elon is doing is I think potentially politically dangerous, and it's like legitimately harmful.
Yeah, and I'm going to be honest. If you come to me 2 weeks ago, actually a reporter did, and they asked me, should Democrats focus on Elon Musk? And I was like, I don't know. I think sometimes it's just better go directly at Trump, go directly at Republicans and what they're doing. But I've been hearing some stuff recently. I talked to a progressive legislator in Michigan today, and also the most conservative member, the Democratic member of the House's office today. They both said there's a lot of energy on the ground anti-Elon. There are a few hundred people outside the Michigan State Capitol today. This one office getting flooded with calls. But what I don't know is whether it's just progressive base or it's like a broader group of people, But energy is good, I think Democrats have been pretty demoralized. So seeing that sort of energy suggests to me that he could ultimately be a millstone around Donald Trump's neck.
Doesn't Elon, though, have one big obstacle, and that is the minute he starts to have a net negative impact on Trump's numbers, Elon's going to get thrown to the wolves. This is song as old as time when it comes to Trump.
It's a little different, though. It's kind of an interesting question, because I was interviewing Bannon a couple months ago about this, because Bannon obviously wants Elon out.
Oh, yeah.
And off the record, even Bannon kind of everybody acknowledges it's not like Trump throwing Corey Lewandowski overboard. Like Corey Lewandowski didn't, or Smooch, these guys didn't have a base. So like Elon is his biggest donor. He's also hit the muscle and the money if he wants to try to pressure, Republicans on the Hill if they start to get out of line. We haven't seen any of that, but if that ever happens, like Elon would be the muscle and the money. And he also has his own, again, like his mental problems and his 200 million followers. Like Trump has to tread a little bit carefully. Like what if Elon, what if they had a huge blow up and Trump kicks him out of the White House, and then Elon starts rage tweeting. Rage tweeting about how Trump got bought up by the deep state. I don't know.
I did not see one big thing developing in Washington. The Steve Bannon, Susie Wiles alliance. No one saw that coming.
Against Elon Musk.
But they really don't like this guy for a lot of reasons. And
it's interesting though. As we were getting into the confirmation battles, I had somebody longtime Trump operative say to me, these Republicans are going to get in line, make no mistake, because you vote against these guys, you've just bought yourself a primary, and Elon Musk is going to fund it. Elon Musk was part of the hammer.
Right, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And why do you think Sue Collins, who clenched her hanky and clutched her pearls, and over the weekend...
I'm wearing Susan's pearls.
And over the weekend, those are prayer beads?
Yeah, they're Susan's.
Over the weekend, gave this whole, I'm going to deeply contemplate how I'm going to say that I'm going to vote for Tulsi Gabbard and RFK.
Oh, and think Bill Cassidy.
A medical doctor voting for RFK. I'm like, happy polio.
Exactly. A guy who said no vaccines are safe and effective, and helped stoke a measles epidemic in Samoa that killed dozens and dozens of kids.
But before we turn to the Democrats, let me, because you two on the ends here put a great deal of effort into building a Republican resistance to Trump.
Oops.
Yeah.
I kind of bailed on that like in 2020, actually.
Yeah.
But go ahead. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I remember seeing you in 2016 when Trump came into one of the spin rooms after one of the debates, one of the Republican primary debates, and your guy was already gone, but you were there, and you were like confronting him face to face. It was like Tim Miller versus Donald Trump, and I was right in between the two of you guys. It was like something else. But is there anything left to that notion of a Republican resistance? No. I mean,
you could put us around a table in a Waffle House, but
Yeah, no.
honestly,
Here's the thing, like this is actually not about. I mean, it is about Trump, but like the fact that there isn't a Republican resistance isn't about Trump, really. It's about the voters. Yeah. Like Republican voters want Trump. If Trump just disappeared from the face of the earth, then the voters would turn to somebody as much like Trump as they could find, right? Like that is what Republican voters want, and this is why. You're right, both Rick and I. Like I worked from 2016 to 2020. I tried to recruit a primary against Trump in 2020, but it was clear to me. I think I wrote this article. I think it was before January 6th. It was like November or December of 2020. I was like, this is over. Like the voters want him. They're going to stick with him, and any Republicans who speak out against him, become anathema within the party. I mean, look at what happened to Liz, and so Liz isn't, like I was always a moderate Rhino squish, like not Liz, like I hated Liz, like when we were both Republicans and good standing, she was on the opposite side.
She wanted to do things like clean up Gaza, for God's sake.
It didn't even matter though. So I think that whole conversation's over. Like it's Trump all the way down.
Can I ask you about the voters though? So I understand the vote. Clearly this is driven by the voters. Yeah. But what was it? There was that moment during the primaries where everybody had been vanquished, but
which primary?
Still primaries.
24 or 16?
No, 24.
Yeah.
And still you had 20 to 30% state after state voting for Nikki Haley. I mean, after she had gotten out of the race. So wasn't that was that just a phantom?
No. So some of that is, and I'll let Rick answer, but like my brief answer to this is that like. Some of this is were people that were like vestigial Republicans that aren't Republicans anymore. Right. Like we've had a realignment, and there were a bunch of people that were Democrats their whole life that were working class whites that like they might still say Democrat on the registration form, but like they're functionally Republicans now. Right. There are a bunch of college-educated, suburban dwelling, like middle to upper income people that voted Republicans their whole life. Their voter registration might still say Republican, but they haven't voted for a Republican in a while now. Yeah. And so a lot of those people are voting for Nikki. And there were a lot of, I knew the Nikki thing was a little fake when I was watching one of the MSNBC guys who's like out in the field, Jacob Soboroff, and he talked to somebody who voted for Nikki, and he's like, "Why'd you come here to vote for Nikki today?" And she's like, "I was watching MSNBC and David Plouffe told me to do so." And I was like, well, good on David Plouffe, but I don't know that we're actually winning Republican voters here.
Yeah. But I have an argument that I've made for a while now is this populist movement that we sort of knew was out there. We took it out of the closet every couple years, hosed it off, sent it off to vote, and then said, you guys let the grown-ups govern. Those people became the folks that were activated by Fox and by Steve Bannon and by social media and eventually by Trump, because they represented a cultural change in the party, much more driven by fear, much more driven by anger, much more driven by stated and unstated racial animus, and they kept all the branding of the Republican Party. But what you have left is a radical party that is much more nationalist, much more nativist, and that frankly, all the things that used to be definitional to being a Republican, and I will cede from the very beginning, these were aspirational things that we weren't good at, but the rule of law, free market economics, government not picking winners and losers, all these things that we claimed.
U.S. being a leader around the world.
Right, personal integrity, not being a thrice divorced whoremonger. All those
we had a couple whoremongers before Trump.
A few. but all those things that we said were important to being a conservative, being a Republican, those have been completely replaced by this, what I call the catalog of imaginary demons, where they are much more about what they are afraid of than what they would like to accomplish. The reason they want to burn down the government is they're afraid smart liberal people are in there corrupting their children, or that that ideas will be placed before them that they don't like aesthetically. And so I think it's important to just understand we're not looking at the Ronald Reagan Republican Party anymore. We're looking at something much more modern and more emotional and ugly. There's no philosophical framework around it other than, own the libs.
America first.
Is that the way you see it?
first.
Is that what you see? I mean, what was it that, Trump clearly tapped into something in 2024. I mean.
This time around?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, look, I knew this was going to be a big crowd today. I was going to be up here with the esteemed panel. I went through so much research, so I'm going to drop some facts on you.
Here we go.
That are going to blow your mind.
Oh, no.
And
some notes.
You know what's
So
crazy?
Because Tim and I don't prep.
That's why she went to Dartmouth. That's why she went to Dartmouth.
Okay. Donald Trump won in 2016 and 2024. And one of the key reasons why was in both 2016 and 2024, he was seen as the more moderate of the two candidates, which seems sort of crazy. You're like, oh my God, this is a guy who tried to overthrow the government, appointed the judges who overturned Roe v. Wade. But he was able to, with voters, sort of triangulate his image a little bit by, stiff-arming the pro-life groups a little bit, speaking differently about like entitlements and tariffs in a way that maybe people would associate more with moderates or Democrats. And Biden, when he won in 2020, was viewed as a more moderate of the candidates. So I do think that is a big problem, which is it's not just that Donald Trump won the election, it's that Democrats lost the election. And as a party, we can't orient ourselves completely around Donald Trump, right? We need to look under the hood and have tough conversations with ourselves about the things that are going wrong. And like, I'll keep this quick because I know you got questions, but this is the main problem with the Democratic Party. It is too small. Why is it too small? Because we're not winning elections. Why are we not winning elections?
Because we're too small.
No, because we are taking positions that definitionally make it impossible to win elections.
Right. Such as?
So, look at with Kamala Harris. In 2020, in that infernal primary of which I, was a part, she was locked into supporting decriminalizing all border crossings. Gender reassignment surgery for undocumented immigrants.
Paid for by taxpayers.
Paid for
in prison.
Taxpayers.
Yeah, not the taxpayers, but the people getting the surgery.
Banning all fracking, right? And I'm gonna cuss here, but we gotta stop that shit. We are doing, President Obama had like a great sort of motto about like foreign policy for his White House, which is like, don't do stupid shit. We need to adopt that motto for the DNC and Democratic Party writ large, because we shouldn't have lost. How did we lose to a guy who had 34 felony, guilty of all these things, who was called like American Hitler a week before the election, all that? It wasn't because we weren't mean enough and because people didn't know that he was this morally flawed human being. It's because they thought that we were weird. They thought that we were out of touch. We did not listen to enough people and talk enough about the need to secure the border and lower costs. So
is that the lesson that the Democrats are taking from it, though? Because I hear some that the feeling is that she abandoned those great liberal positions.
So some are there. Some of us are trying to chart a new path, a better path, and stay tuned. There'll be some news on that. But and look, if you look at, again, I did a lot of research here, and I looked at the ads of the top overperformers in the House this year. And I actually worked with 5 of the 6 top Democratic overperformers in the House. And if you look at what these ads had in common, if you look at a word cloud, it's the top words were costs, inflation, border, police, bipartisanship, independent. And all of these candidates, whether it's Jared Golden in Maine, Mary Peltola in Alaska, Ruben Gallego in Arizona, what they did was they all ran ads with either cops or Border Patrol guys praising them. They ran ads saying, I'm not like those other Democrats. They won, not because they ran as Democrats, they won because they ran against the Democratic brand. And we cannot build a sustainable majority. We will not be able to win in tough races, in tough states, if the Democratic brand is a net negative. And so we've got to fix it, and part of it is lifting up some of these common sense Democrats, because what we need in our party is common sense. And there are always going to be people who are counterproductive, and there are always going to be loud voices who go out and say stupid things. And what we need to do is flood the zone with some of the better messengers who get it.
I think they have kind of a deeper problem. I agree with all of this, but one problem that the Democrats have in presidential elections now is a deeper problem, is the nature of the coalitions and who shows up and who doesn't. I think the Democrats will do well in midterms, but for example, I'm not going to make anybody out themselves, but my guess is that at most we have 2 or 1 Biden to Trump voters in this room. We might have 0. But maybe we have a couple of you. You don't have to raise your hand. You can if you want. But the Biden to Trump voters were almost entirely people that don't really watch the news.
Yep.
Like, like, uh-oh.
Don't watch the news.
Yeah. So like, it was not highly engaged. There were some. Obviously, there are exceptions. It's a big country, but like the people that are the most highly engaged, that pay attention to the news, that have political priors, like the Democrats did well with them. Did and well enough to win. The Democrats lost with people that don't vote in midterms, with people that don't read the newspaper, that get their news from social media, and so the Democrats have to reach those people, and so part of that is changing policy positions, but a lot of these people weren't voting on fracking, and they might have been voting on the trans prison thing because they had so many ads surface them, but the Democrats weren't getting any positives. Like, what is getting that type of person excited? And that's a diverse group. It's young black and brown people. There's a lot of talk about young men, but it's women.
Yeah, and then there are many different
women.
factors, but if you look at it, Democrats lost ground with black voters, they lost ground with Hispanic.
Black men.
Black men. Yes, black men, with Hispanic voters overall, with Asian voters overall. The only group I think that we gained with was college-educated white voters this cycle.
Boom.
And
hell yeah, college-educated white voters. Nice job.
And we always had that we're the party of diversity and all that, and clearly whatever, it's not working. And the message, and that's the other thing, is our messaging wasn't breaking through to people because it wasn't particularly engaging or salient, and that's a problem. I think we had a problem with messengers, we had a problem with the message, and a lot of people talk about the new information environment, TikTok, all that, but if you want to break through on TikTok, what's more likely to break through? Is it if you say something that's sort of funny, offensive, all of that, or just give a lecture on USAID, we sort of offer up spinach, they sort of offer up ice cream, and I think we've got to get better at offering up sexier messages, being a little more interesting, flooding the zone with news, just like Donald Trump did, and we really see
at the presidential level. Some of this stuff isn't as important.
Agree.
I think one of the things that Trump is a master of is a simple rule that I followed for a long time in politics, and that is your heart and your gut are going to beat your head every time. So when Democrats come out and say, just read our 757-page climate plan, and you'll understand what we're doing, and Donald Trump says, cheap gas, who wins? Every time. The heart and the gut dominate people. That's just basic cognitive human behavior at the lowest level. And he's good at stoking, there's an old joke that politics, every election falls into one of 4 boxes: love, hate, hope, and fear. And Donald Trump is really good at hate and fear, but he's also shockingly good at giving people who, and I say this advisedly, who really shouldn't have a lot of hope for what he's going to do, to feel hopeful about what he's going to do. He told them, I'm going to block those Mexicans so they won't eat your dog. Now, that is the dumbest thing.
Haitians.
Excuse me, fact check, yes.
God.
I'm going to block those Haitians. I'm going to stop
Have we heard about the Haitians lately?
You know what? Amazingly enough, I think that story just solved itself.
Yeah.
But the idea of Trump stoking the amygdala of a lot of Americans, that goes beyond just a partisan frame. So one of the things that they did this year, they ran that famous or infamous trans ad. They weren't just talking to Republicans. They were hammering that ad on sports shows, on sports radio, on sports websites. They were, and one of the reasons they understood what to do there, and by the way, just as an aside, Tim will tell you this from our Republican days, we don't spend money on things that don't work. If it's working, you flood the money in. That's why they spent $300 million across the presidential, and they were running trans ads down to state assembly races in Wisconsin because it worked and because the Democrats didn't have an emotionally resonant response to it.
Why did Kamala Harris not, at any point, and she had a couple of opportunities, say, no, I'm actually not in favor
She should have.
of taxpayer-funded, of transgender surgery? Why did she not?
Well, I know.
Her team said that the ads didn't test well. And this, again, gets to gut. Like, and sometimes we let data.
And would it have mattered is another thing. I'm not sure it would have mattered. I mean, she was on tape saying it, you know.
I think it mattered, but like, look, this is again where people, I think you can be humane and also have a bit of common sense, right? And I do think, like, look at a governor like Andy Beshear. You know, he vetoed very anti-trans legislation that he said would be really cruel. But he also ran ads saying,
So did Asa Hutchinson.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But he also ran ads saying, I'm not for, you know, gender transition for minors. And that was an important line in the sand to draw. And I just think we got to start nipping this stuff in the bud because, like, the narrative has gone out of control, and Republicans have allowed to define where Democrats stand on these issues. And it's clear we need to have a better answer other than this is a distraction or, like, you're transphobic if you have concerns about these things. You know, we've got a couple races coming up in 2025 and already in Virginia.
Virginia, you're already, I was just going to say.
You're already seeing it. And I think that Abigail Spanberger, let's look to her. Like, I want to look to the 2025 races, see what works. And the Democrats have a good opportunity to, you know, show that they get it. And we got some common sense back. But, and that will be a good testing ground for things like that on the trans ads. Because those are coming. Those are coming.
Yeah.
They're already coming.
Winsome Sears has already sort of started broadly hinting about, my opponent says she's a CIA officer and tough butt.
And I suspect you won't see those ads unanswered, you know?
I hope not. I think that's, and look, it's not just that area of it. Connecting with real voters again.
Yeah.
Where you are not talking about, I mean, the minute you say my policy book or my policy paper or my slide deck or whatever it is, you lose them. So Tim, relate to them directly and you might have a chance.
Tim, you remember what Trump did on January 20th of 2017. He filed for re-election. He was running immediately. And so much of what he did.
Kept the inauguration to file it, you might recall. Just flew home.
So, but he was immediately running, and so much of what he did you could see through the lens of his of his re-election effort. He's a lame duck now.
Is he?
Is he? Is he though? I mean,
how does that? I mean, what? Is there a sense that I mean, we know Elon has about 115 days
I'm not
left,
like going here giving you like resistance porn that's like he's gonna become a dictator, but like I don't know, man. They've been in for 3 weeks now. They are just they do not care about the rule of law at all. It's not like last time where they have. What was that guy's name? McGurn? It's been so long, I forget the characters. McGann, yeah. It's not like they got like normie lawyers in there that are like, all right, sir, this one's against the Constitution. Like, that's not happening. He's just like, from the podium, Caroline was just like, yeah, we don't think birthright citizenship is legal. And it's like, it's right there in the words. It's like right there in the 14th Amendment. It's as plain as day. So, I don't, they're firing people who shouldn't be fired. They're not allowed to fire. So, like, is it a 0% chance that he's like, I'll run again, and you guys will see what happens.
Yeah,
you guys can send the army out. I don't think it's a 0%. I'm not saying it's 100. I'm not saying it's definitely gonna happen, but I don't think it's a 0% chance. He's 82. He has an addled mind, and I also think the thing that I know he's gonna do for sure is do the pretend thing. To try to guard against the lame duck element of it, where he'll keep making the jokes. He'll be like, "Well, what do you guys think out there? Should I run again? Should I not run?" Like he'll do that stuff at rallies. All that stuff's coming. So I don't, we'll see. I mean, I think that he'll eventually leave. But I don't know about the lame duck. But
I mean, the actuarial tables are our best friend here.
To your point about the Democrats. They could learn a little something from Trump and Mitch McConnell on this, though. Like, I didn't really love their view of the Trump second inauguration, which was like, I think the lesson we need to learn here is that the American people just want us to work with them. And we're just going to go there and be nice and be friends. Okay, whatever, they could do that. But Trump didn't do that for Biden. But I think that Mitch McConnell This was in your book? Who wrote this? The Mitch McConnell after when Obama won in 2009.
Oh, yeah.
He's at the
He's at the
cigar
one-term
bar.
president.
He's like, well, that's my job is to make him a failed president. And like that's the Democrats' job right now is to make him a failed president, and he's going to help him out.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
I think that's what they should be doing.
One of the
So
upsides.
Fetterman's
Wrong.
Wrong.
And maybe he's right for his race in Pennsylvania, and like Liz said earlier,
Yeah.
let 1,000 followers bloom. But like, if Fetterman was running the DSCC, I would say that.
I'm going to disagree slightly. And I'm not saying you get rolled by him, you go along with everything, but voters did send a pretty strong signal that just being reflexively anti-Trump isn't enough.
I don't think so.
And-
I
no,
think voters
but-
sent a long signal that they fucking hate what's happening
I-
in Washington, and like they didn't like it. They wanted to throw the bums out, and and now tell them we're going to throw these bums out next time.
I love that. I love the sound of that. But like, I also think, but I do think that there is no harm in Democrats saying, I will work with Donald Trump when I agree with him. Because you know what we're seeing is there's not a lot of areas of agreement where he's doing stuff to lower costs. And so I don't think Democrats pay a price for doing that. I do think Democrats pay a price if they come right out and say, you know, impeach this MFer like
You think the Democrats
Rashida Tlaib did.
should vote for the? So they have a big budget fight coming up here. The government funding is going to expire.
debt ceiling.
They're going to try to cut a deal where it's like we're going to do border, California emergency, raise the debt ceiling, fund the government.
Yeah,
Would Democrats vote with them on that?
I'd like to play some hardball there. Yeah. Let's
I
play
mean,
some hardball.
I think given the narrow nature of the House majority for the Republicans, Hakeem has a marvelous chance to really cause disruption inside the MAGA wing of the party, the Marjorie Taylor Greene, Paul Gosar.
Because
Andy
he doesn't
Biggs
have
faction.
the votes to get any of that stuff done.
No,
just
they can't pass
Republicans.
anything.
But let's just say he goes out
Boy,
tomorrow
they
and
can't
says,
do it.
hey, let's do a bill to reduce the cost of eggs. Not that you could do that. I don't know. Maybe he thinks he could do it. But like, why would Democrats oppose that? Just to oppose it. You know, that's what I'm saying is if there is a way, if there are things they agree on that they want to do, then work with them. We're not seeing a lot of opportunity for that, right? But like, I'm just saying,
You don't say.
I don't think it is smart to just start from that we need to resist everything.
And the idea that Trump is this Svengali and Democrats should mirror what he's done because it's successful. I mean, Trump has lost. He lost in
Every election except this one that we just won.
Yes, yeah, and 2016.
Which is tough. I mean, he did lose 2016 in the raw vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and he lost every midterm and lost,
But I think there's also one other
Special
thing about,
elections.
I think that Trumpism outside of very red districts has trouble scaling.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
That's one of the slightly optimistic thing for the future is watching J.D. Vance try to be Trump in the future is going to be like watching me try to be a figure skater.
Right.
Yeah, what is next?
Briefly amusing, utterly tragic.
I mean, what is next? What's after Trump?
I could see you as a Tanya Harding type. Sorry, what
My
was the
spirit
question?
animal.
What was the
What's
question?
after Trump?
What's after Trump? More Trump, baby. Barron, Trump all the way down.
Yeah.
It's Trump. We're in here, baby.
It's dynastic, baby.
We're stuck in here with him, and I guess they're not stuck in here with us. They could leave if they wanted. No, what's after Trump? The Republican Party, like the closest possible thing to Trump. Again, like the America First, the nationalism. This is not something going away.
No.
Like this is what the party is. And by the way, just as a quick like world, tour. Like the Anglo countries were the only ones that really had a classically liberal conservative party, like
Yeah.
free markets and free people. And everywhere else in the world, the right-wing party is blooded soil, nationalism, America first, India first, Brazil first, Hungary first, like strong man working with the kind of like conservative religious sect in that country. Like that's what the right-wing party looks like in every country, and that's what it's going to look like in this country.
But Trumpism doesn't work as well without Trump. And just to Rick's point, right?
And
all
the kids are not Trump. Don Jr. is not
I
Trump.
don't know about that yet. Don Jr., if you've got a big primary, you got a 10-way Republican primary, because there's going to be a lot of people out there.
Well, he'd lose to JD probably.
We'll see.
Unless
We'll
J-
see.
Who knows? It's a long time.
It's the family business
look
now,
at
though.
Carrie Lake, look at Mark Robinson in North Carolina. He had a lot of other
Right.
issues, but look at Tudor Dixon in Michigan in 2022. Look at all these Senate candidates. And that's the thing is, one of the big problems for Republicans in 2024, the reason why they didn't do better in Senate races was that, and some House races, was that a lot of people just went in, voted for Trump, left the rest of their ballot blank. So that's why Jackie Rosen was able, the Democrat in Nevada, was able to win, why Tammy Baldwin in Wisconsin was able to win, why some of these other candidates were able to win. And I think that is a problem for the Republican Party, which is that there is sort of a cult of personality around Trump, and it's not necessarily replicable.
Yeah, no, they might lose in general
Yeah.
elections. I don't know. But my point is like the let's just say we're having regular primaries in 2028 and 2032, and it's not a Trump family enterprise, which is not a 0% chance again. And Trump's like, all right, guys, I'm just going to go golf. I got out of jail now, and it was a huge win, and it was the best second term ever. Put me on Mount Rushmore, which is, I think, something that might happen, by the way.
Yeah,
Just
I
you
can
sit with
totally see that.
They don't have the stone on.
They don't really have them, but like they could find a spot kind of near it.
I mean, you do know that Kristi Noem gave him that model of Mount Rushmore,
Yeah.
with his face, and it's on his desk.
So anyway,
at Mar-a-Lago.
that's getting chiseled,
Yeah.
and he's just like, all right, this is a win for me, guys. I'm out. All right. The 2032 primary, it's not like that we're going to go back to Dave McCormick. You know what I mean? Like the Republican primary, people will want whoever can do the best Trump imitation then. Yeah. So that maybe that person will do a bad Trump imitation, then they'll lose in the
Jeb
general.
Bush
I don't
maybe
know.
tan, rested, and ready.
Yeah, no. Jeb's not coming back. Marco's like, it's JD, it's Tucker, it's somebody else in that vein. Like that's where this thing is.
Ron DeSantis is already making noises to people, and everyone's like,
So in our time, Rooney, let's take us on the future of the Democratic Party. Who are going to be the key figures?
So
You got Rashida Tlaib.
yeah, I think. How many of you guys watch Game of Thrones? Probably
Yeah.
a lot, right?
Yeah.
It's a great show about politics. But Littlefinger in there has a great quote where he says, chaos isn't a pit, chaos is a ladder. And this is, to me, a silver lining in all of this, is that I think amid all the chaos of this, like we might find new leaders. Like we're gonna see people like emerge out of this chaos, maybe new voices who come out and are really, really effective at communicating with the voters. And like, I think it's exhausting when we have this discussion and we just go back to the same names over and over and over again. And so I'm hopeful that it is going to be new voters. And look, I think in future presidentials, we really should prioritize people who've won tough races. We should prioritize people who take common sense positions and don't take stupid positions like gender reassignment surgeries on the taxpayer dime for undocumented immigrants who are,
in prison.
And we should also nominate people.
How did that poll, by the way?
I don't know.
Single digits. I'm not exaggerating.
And
It was at 4%.
And I think what's really important too is
I'd like to meet those.
we need to support Democrats and elevate Democrats who are willing to take on the vocal 40% of our party that wants Democrats to take on all these unpopular positions, tell them to take a hike and align with the majority that supports common sense policies.
You could use one other thing. Somebody that is good at talking like a normal person.
I know. I'm so. We need someone who can communicate.
Communicate like a
we
normal
cannot
person
play
would
this
be nice.
game every cycle of like hide from the media. We need someone who can go out and do that Super Bowl
So you ready
interview.
for the answer?
Go out and
It's
do
not
Joe
somebody
Rogan.
that's won tough elections. It's somebody that's won tough debates. Stephen A. Smith.
Oh, I love him. I know. He's
I
a
don't
guilty
hate it.
pleasure.
I don't hate it.
I mean, Kamala Harris won that tough debate, but winning a debate's not enough. You got to be able to hang. You got to be able to have a normal conversation.
She should have done the Fox debate. That was her one thing that she should have done.
Yeah,
That-
yeah.
That was
I'm
a
with you.
mistake. She should have gone.
She tried.
She should have gone into
She
the Fox.
tried, but she got
tried.
too late. She
It was
should have
too
gone in
late.
early.
Yeah.
I think there is a.
I mean, she agreed to do a Fox debate at the end.
Yeah.
I think there
did.
is a possibility that Democrats. I had a Democratic donor ask me right after the election, like, who should it be? And they were already like playing the chess game. Should it be Pete or so? And I said, it's not who it should be, it's what it should be.
Yes, exactly.
It should be a guy or a woman who is smart and articulate and fast on their feet, but not a dick. It should be somebody that people can say, I really like him. I want to have a beer with her. I want to go there's somebody I'd go camping with.
Yeah.
There's somebody that you trust him to watch your cats. Not just somebody who says.
Somebody who's never said lived experience.
Right.
Oh my God.
And someone who never says.
Or everyday people.
Never says, my plan is
Right.
on page 74, paragraph 6. no, no, and no. Heart, gut, not head.
Agree.
And just probably necessary at this point to be a digital native of some degree, or at least a really skillful.
I'm sorry, we got to have like a cutoff age. No more like octogenarians, all that stuff.
Oh no,
like,
I agree completely.
Yeah. Being able to speak would be nice. It would be a big upgrade next time.
All right.
It's
Well,
generally desirable.
on that optimistic note, I think we have something to kind of hang on to there. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
We're around.
Liz, thank you.